Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York-based jazz guitarist Aleksi Glick. He opened up about his debut and very new 2022 CD, Guitar and Me. He goes through various musical styles that have been crucial to the guitar's evolution, like R&B, folk, rock, and bossa nova. He has a song called A Tune for Vic, and it's a tribute to his recently deceased mentor, the late, great Vic Juris. He has been exposed to virtually all styles of music since birth, and his future is emerging. Dig this story.
Cool. Hey, thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I guess before we really kind of get into the nuts and bolts of your new project, it's coming out now during a time where, we're getting on the tail end of COVID, hopefully. More live shows are picking up. There's chances to actually get out and promote this live. So what does this release mean for you at this particular time?
I guess it sort of like signifies like sort of, I guess it's kind of like almost like, it's the end of the pandemic. It definitely signifies, sort of like, what I went through during the pandemic and just what, I guess so many of us went through, as artists. We all had a lot of time, alone in our houses to do whatever, and this is kind of, I guess I chose to spend my time. As far as what it means musically, it's really a passion project. I play guitar with a lot of different people and, a lot of different styles, but I've always wanted a project where, that kind of just, draws from a lot of the different styles of music that I play from, and I've always loved solo guitar, so it really is, just something that I really wanted to do for a while that is very sort of personal, just encompasses a lot of the different kinds of music I play. Of course, jazz is sort of the overriding genre, but, there's a lot of sort of Americana, blues, soul, and even some, like world music in there.
It's your debut album, and that's a pretty big deal. So talk to me a little bit about, how long this took, and even from that perspective, your entrance into the world with this album. How does that feel, and what are you hoping the listener gets from this first album?
Yeah, totally. So I guess it took me probably about, from start to finish, I would say maybe about 6 months to record. I guess especially during, like the height of COVID, as, so many of us, artists felt, there were some days where you would be extremely motivated and, I would want to do a bunch of recording, and some days where it was kind of hard to get out of bed, to be honest. The next, I guess, it took another few months for it to be mixed and mastered, because Dave Darlington's a busy guy, and he's great to work with, I really would like it to communicate a certain level of, like, intimacy and just kind of, I just hope that it, makes them feel, I don't know, it's a very sort of, like, warm and intimate sounding album. So I just hope it, makes them feel good. I hope that they can really connect to it and that it can be, more of an almost kind of introspective experience.
Your style, you have R&B, you have folk, you have rock, you have bossa nova. There's a lot going on. How did you arrive at all of these different flavors that go into the music and your voicing?
It's funny, there's so many, kind of specialists, in New York, and that's great. And I definitely, admire so many of my contemporaries that just will specialize in one specific genre. For me, the problem with me is I just love too many different kinds of music. All my favorite jazz players, for instance, my mentor Vic, who this album was dedicated to, and, like guys like John Scofield, Julian Lage, Paul Bolenbach, they draw from all these different kinds of music. And I've also just played, in a lot of, kind of rock bands and a lot of R&B bands and done a lot of studio work and theater work. So I'm really just drawing from all these different kinds of music that I've played. And I also feel like it's, hopefully given me a little bit more of an original voice when I'm playing rather than just kind of drawing from one style of music. And also I as much as I love playing jazz standards, there's only so many times you can play a certain standard and have it, for me at least, and have it be new and refreshing. So I figured, maybe some of these new sort of classics, tunes like, that were almost more kind of like classic rock tunes and have become songs in, the just classic songs in the American music vocabulary, like, Casey Jones, Still Crazy After All These Years, Georgia on My Mind, although that, is a jazz. I guess a lot of jazz players do play that one too. Why not kind of, have, jazz versions of those tunes? I just feel like, I don't know, it could be a cool new direction for the music. And I know I'm not the only one exploring it, but that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Speaking of your voice and how you arrived at this point, take me back to your childhood where you were born and raised and kind of what some of your influences were growing up.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New York City. I'm doomed to live here forever, I know. I love it, but it's definitely, it's a specific type of lifestyle, I guess. It's a grind. But my dad actually is a professional musician too, and he was kind of, an old folky, like, part of, I guess, the village folk scene back in the day. And, so I was exposed to all, guys like, Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie from a very young age. And I guess that's maybe where my love of songwriting and, the development of kind of like, of a song to really tell a story came from. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about folk music is I guess it really, every song really tells a story quite eloquently, even if it's simple. Then, my dad never really pushed me to play guitar. He was very supportive of me. Started on piano when I was about 4 years old, never really got very good at it. But then, I don't know, when I was about 12 years old, I just saw these kids playing guitar and it looked so cool and I was so drawn to it. Yeah, I just picked up a guitar and really fell in love with it. Initially was really into a lot of classic rock and grunge music, when I was like 12, 13, which you can still kind of hear those influences today. I was really into Pearl Jam, got really into like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, The Who. And then when I want to say maybe like 13 or 14 years old, I heard John McLaughlin play. Not live, but I heard a Mahavishnu Orchestra album. And I was like, what is this? That was kind of my transition into jazz, but realizing just the level of artistry and, technique, in the music. And then originally I was just drawn to it because I was like, he's an amazing player. This music is incredible. It's like nothing I've ever heard. And then I started to really get into Pat Martino and then just really fell in love with the music. So that was kind of now I guess I'm like 14 or 15 years old. And then I decide I want to be a professional musician. I know it from that age and just kind of, I don't really look back. Although, for a few years I was really kind of a jazz purist. I kind of went almost the opposite way and, was like only listening to Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, and that was, I guess, during also I went to the Peabody Conservatory, for jazz performance. I studied with Paul Ballenbeck, who we're still really close to this day. I mean, do some duo playing. He's been a really great, mentor to me as well. And then, I don't know. And then I guess like when I got out of school, I realized how much I just love so many different kinds of music. And then I really started to kind of go back to my roots, if you want to say, and check out a lot of, just the music that got me really into playing guitar, a lot of kind of classic rock. But this time I got really a lot more sort of into R&B and funk too, because I realized, I don't know, just that was really where my heart was at the time. And I remember also, Paul actually told me early on when I, was in school and, maybe my time wasn't as good as it could be. He was like, man, just play along with a lot of James Brown recordings. So I started to check out a lot of James Brown, and from there I got really into like Tower of Power, Sly and the Family Stone, Parliament, all that stuff. And I guess that was my gateway into a lot of kind of funk and R&B music, and then got into some more modern stuff. And, I guess that was sort of my, summary of my journey, at least until my early 20s.
Talk to me a little bit about Vic Juris. You dedicated this album to him. He was clearly a mentor. What did he teach you that's kind of reverberated and been lasting for you, that's been really helpful for you to release this album and just in your growth as a musician?
Oh man, Vic taught me so much, and not even just about music. He really a huge inspiration just as far as how to be a good person and live one's life to the fullest. Actually, when I saw Pat Martino for the first time, Pat was so cool. I went up there and I was like this 14-year-old little kid, didn't really know much about anything. And I just, he invited me down to, his house in Philadelphia to take a lesson. And then when I was in Philly, I think he saw, even if I wasn't, maybe I couldn't really play that well at the time, I think he saw at least my passion for the music. And he said, you really should get in touch with Vic Juris. Let me connect you guys. He'd be a great guy to study with. Vic, as soon as I met him, it was like, we had known each other our whole lives. He used to call me his inadequate son, and, I would stay at his house on weekends. And he's just such a great, almost like second father to me growing up. He really taught me how to be creative. A lot of mentors, and I guess, kind of like, or guitar teachers really want you to play exactly how they play, or they really just want you to kind of play jazz or study by a certain book. He really encouraged me to explore different kinds of music and be creative and really find my own voice. He also really taught me just on a personal level that nothing was that big of a deal. Especially in late high school, early college days, I would get really nervous when I would play sometimes, especially if it was for a jury or a performer. And, Vic he just had a way of always, being really calm and collected and letting me know that no matter what happens, it's all just, good fun. And, it's really about kind of how you're connecting with people and not even how you play, even though obviously you want to play well. So I also really just learned a certain demeanor when I play, which I think really helps me actually have a career in music, in New York, because there are going to be off days and there are going to be days where you need to play a gig last minute and don't know any of the music, and you kind of just do your best. He taught me a lot about, yes, being creative, and also obviously taught me all the technical stuff, who to check out. He introduced me to so many new artists that I hadn't heard of at the time, introduced me to a lot of people. But, I think just most importantly, kind of an outlook was really kind of what I got from Vic that really let me have at least, up to this point, some moderate success in the music industry and just be able to, make a living as a guitar player in New York. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of a good summary of, what Vic meant to me and what I got from Vic. And, to this day, I think about him almost every day.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What do you look forward to the most?
Oh, man, playing with other people. Which is funny for me to say because I just released a solo guitar album. I love connecting with other musicians in the audience, and I'm just happiest when I'm on stage and when I'm playing music. And with the solo guitar album, it was like I have such a passion for playing for solo guitar because it's just I'm really able to kind of explore all the different things that I can do and how the guitar can kind of be its own orchestra. I do miss some of that, connection with other musicians, but I feel like it's almost helped me really know myself a lot better as a musician and, really, explore how my own brain works. And, it's just been kind of, it's almost helped me really just understand myself as a player a lot more. So, I'd say, just in general, not to be too long-winded, connecting with other people, both the audience and other musicians, as well as just a complete love and surrender to the music. I'm happiest when I'm playing music, and both with myself and with other people.
When we do return in earnest, when things start getting back into a live environment more and more, what do you hope we all realize about the power of live music that we've largely been away from for about 2 years now?
Well, there's just simply no replacement for it. It helps us connect with other people and kind of learn things about ourselves, in ways that nothing else can. And I think, I have started to play a bit again, through the pandemic. I was doing a lot of sort of some corporate work, and some wedding work. But I would honestly, especially when things were bad, I'd feel bad really having a show and inviting people because I didn't want to get people sick. But now as things have gotten better, and especially when things have been better, I have had some shows, and I'm having a release show this Tuesday. On the occasions that I have been able to really have shows, I just feel like people appreciate it so much more. They're so much more attentive because it's almost like you don't know what you have until it's gone. I think live music is just one of those things. It's provides a connection to other people as well as just one's own self and emotions that, really nothing else can. And, live streaming was cool. It helped get us through the pandemic, but it's really not the same, at least for me. It doesn't, you don't get that same intimacy and connection, with the audience.
Everyone has a perception of you. They have an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of yourself. Who do you think you are?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I guess it's like who I strive to be and who I kind of think I am at the time. I mean, who I strive to be is definitely someone that, just really helps connect people, helps build community, someone that, is always just looking out, for other people, just is pretty uncompromising when it comes to his pursuit of, and devotion to music. As far as who I am now, I would say, I do really, love the things that are most important to me are, community, friendship, playing, obviously music. But yeah, I feel like I'm learning where to really put my energies a little bit more. Like I found myself, being, I used to kind of say yes to everything as a guitar player in New York, and now I'm really trying to kind of figure out where, just in order to create things, that are really worthwhile, you need to figure out what to say yes to, what to say no to. So I guess I'm trying to, I'm someone that definitely is very devoted to my craft and kind of learning a little bit more where to put my energies and what to pursue and what is really worthwhile. I'd like to think I'm a good guitar player and a good friend, I guess,
Right on. Aleksi, thank you for taking a minute out today to talk about the new album. Good luck with it and your life and music. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats and players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Aleksi for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. And everything related to Joe Domino, you can go to joedomino.com, and if you feel like it, you can donate to the Neon Jazz cause. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.